Man, every time this team hits the field lately, it feels like the entire league is waking up to something we have been yelling about for months. And let me start right away with the dude who is turning wide receiver rooms into quiet libraries every single week. Quinyon Mitchell is playing ball like he came into the National Football League. Already knowing the answer key, it is wild to watch because he lines up on one side, then flips to the other, gets matched with the top guys, and nothing changes. The ball comes his way and suddenly it is like the quarterback forgot how to complete a pass. When a cornerback can live on both islands, left and right, and still look calm, patient, and totally in control, that is not just good football, that is elite football. What blows my mind is how he is diagnosing these routes like he is reading the script. Before the snap, you watch him sit on an out route and it is like he knew exactly where that receiver was going to break. He is not panicking, not flipping his hips too early, not giving an inch more than he needs to. He plants that inside foot and drives like he is running the route for the guy. And you can tell he prepares for every situation, because even when the pass is incomplete, he is wrapping, securing, doing everything coaches dream of. That is football IQ on another level. When a rookie is already showing that kind of awareness on 4th and short, refusing to give cushion and playing the moment exactly how the situation demands, that is when you know you have a cornerstone player for the next decade. Honestly, the last time this fan base felt something like this about a homegrown corner, you probably have to dig all the way back into those old school days when guys were laying the wood and playing fearless, and now you look at Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and it is hard not to imagine these two building something scary for a long stretch. It is one thing to draft talent. It is another thing entirely to see both of them coming into their own at the same time, feeding off the energy, feeding off the competition, and just elevating everything around them. And the timing could not be better, because this is one of those special weeks. The fans know it. The players know it. The whole city knows it. When those Kelly green uniforms come out, there is a different heartbeat in the stadium. It is like history puts its hand on your shoulder and says, go take care of business. And this week, everybody is already talking because Dallas is coming in loud after beating a team they were supposed to beat anyway. They put up points. They strutted a little bit, and suddenly they think they are on a roll. But Eagles fans know what time it is. Those games do not mean anything when Kelly Green comes out. There is just a different energy, a different swagger, a different level of physicality that shows up. The players feel it too. You can sense that fire when they talk. And that sets up the perfect backdrop for everything swirling around Jalen Hurts right now. Because the noise has been getting louder every single day. One little comment turns into a rumor, then a rumor turns into a storyline. And suddenly everybody is acting like the relationship between the quarterback and the offense is a soap opera. And the thing is, it only takes one small spark online to get the whole league gossiping. A post here, a like there, a vague statement getting twisted. And soon it becomes this giant narrative that does not line up with what is actually happening on the field. People start talking about play calling disagreements, frustration in the locker room, players wanting this, coaches wanting that, and it becomes this big dramatic swirl. And honestly, a lot of it feels like outside voices trying to make something bigger than it is. When you are a quarterback, everything gets magnified. Every expression, every throw, every time you target one receiver more than another, and suddenly everyone thinks they have the inside scoop on the mood of an entire team. And sure, maybe there were tensions. Maybe emotions were high, but name a competitive locker room where that does not happen. When the offense is not firing the way people expect, the quarterback is always going to be the center of the conversation. That comes with the territory, but what makes it wild is how fast all of it snowballed. One person bringing up old comparisons nobody wants to hear, another person hinting that certain guys are not happy, and then you have fans acting like the machine is falling apart. But then you hear other voices say it is nowhere near as dramatic as people are making it. Sometimes the outside world wants to turn a spark into a bonfire, just because it is something to talk about. And while all that noise is swirling, you look at what is happening on the defensive side, and there is this quiet, steady rise. Adoree Jackson is the perfect example of that. The guy has been fighting uphill since camp. Hearing fans doubt him, hearing people say he was washed, hearing folks say he was barely going to make the roster, and instead of folding, he just kept showing up, kept taking the reps, kept fighting through those early bumps. What stands out most is the confidence, because some corners get beat and suddenly everything about their game falls apart. You see the body language drop, you see the hesitation, you see the second guessing. But Jackson is wired differently, even when a play does not go his way. He comes right back like nothing happened. That is what makes a real competitor, and over these last stretch of games, you can actually see the improvement. He is sticking to assignments, getting hands on the ball, finishing plays he was not finishing earlier in the year. When a guy goes through rough patches and does not let it shake him, that says a lot about how he is built. That is the kind of resilience you want in your number 2 corner. That is the kind of mindset that becomes contagious in a locker room. And when the defensive line starts heating up and forcing quarterbacks to hurry, corners like Jackson get even more dangerous because that timing gets thrown off and routes break down. A confident corner plus a nasty pass rush is a beautiful thing for any defense. And speaking of that pass rush, Nolan Smith has been driving fans crazy because everybody wants to see him unleashed. Every time he steps on the field, he flashes something. That burst, that bend, that hunger to chase plays down. But clearly the team is being careful with him. You can tell by how they manage his snaps. He gets out there, shows he is disruptive, and then suddenly he is back on the sideline. And you start wondering if he is in the doghouse or if something is wrong physically. And honestly, it makes sense now. He is still working back from that tricep issue. Pass rushers depend on power and leverage. And if that muscle is not right, one bad punch can shut you down for the rest of the season. So the staff is easing him in. 10 snaps here, 15 snaps there, enough to make an impact. But not enough to risk re-injury. That might frustrate fans, but the long game is what matters. Because when this guy is fully healthy, when he gets that strength and that trust in the arm back, he is going to take off. You can easily imagine playoff Nolan Smith flying around, feeding off that defensive line rotation, making quarterbacks rethink stepping up in the pocket. Man, when you look at how this defense is slowly turning into a complete machine, you can feel that something big is brewing. It is not just about individual names making plays. It is the rhythm, the communication, the way guys are trusting each other more and more as the weeks go on. You watch the film, and it becomes obvious that this unit is starting to move like a single organism. And that is where someone like Nolan Smith eventually comes in. Because once he is fully unleashed, that wave of pressure is going to roll from one end of the line to the other. You pair that with a healthy Jalen Carter collapsing pockets like it is nothing, and suddenly quarterbacks are forced into decisions they do not want to make. That is when turnovers happen. That is when games flip. That is when momentum becomes a weapon. The thing about this team is that even when the offense is dealing with ups and downs, the defense has the capacity to stabilize everything, and right now you can sense that shift. Guys are getting healthier, younger players are playing faster, and the entire group seems to understand exactly what is expected in this scheme. When your corners start tightening up, when your safeties are coming downhill with confidence, when the linebackers are trusting their keys, it frees the front to do what they do best. And that is where the biggest leap comes, because once the quarterback is rushed, panicked, or forced to reset his feet, even the smallest hesitation becomes an opportunity for someone on the back end to jump the route or break up a pass. Suddenly you have a unit that complements itself in every phase, and honestly, that is why the whole situation with Adoree Jackson has been so fascinating. You take a guy who heard the criticism, who knew fans were not excited when he came in, and who clearly understood that every mistake he made early in the season would be amplified. But instead of shrinking under that weight, he used it as fuel. The way he carries himself on the field reminds you that football is as much mental as it is physical. Because when corners lose confidence, it becomes obvious. The hesitation shows up immediately. The feet get heavier. The eyes start drifting to the wrong place. But Jackson does not play scared. Even when he gets beat, he lines up again like he is daring the next throw. That is not something you can teach. That is something that comes from a deep belief in your own ability. You combine that with the gradual improvement he has shown and you start to appreciate how important he is to the puzzle. Nobody is expecting him to be the superstar of the secondary. That role clearly belongs to the rising young guys who are already playing like veterans. But having a number to corner who is steady, who understands spacing, who tackles well, and who does not mentally unravel is invaluable, because when the defensive line starts cooking, quarterbacks do not have time to skin the entire field. They pick a matchup quickly. And if Jackson is holding his ground on that side, it forces them to test players they really do not want to test. It forces them to think. And the moment a quarterback thinks instead of reacting, The defense wins, and that is the beauty of this whole defensive identity taking shape. It is not about relying on only one guy. It is about creating an ecosystem where every player feeds the next. The pressure helps the coverage helps the pressure. The linebackers help disguise the intentions, the safeties help erase mistakes, and when the energy builds up like that, you can feel the momentum swing even before the play starts. That is what makes this group so dangerous when everything clicks. But while the defense continues rising, the offense is stuck under a spotlight that seems brighter than ever, and a lot of that revolves around Jalen Hurts. The conversation around him has grown way bigger than it needs to be. That is the truth. A single clip, a single comment, a single moment on the sideline can turn into a mountain of discussion. People forget how fast narratives grow in this league. You give them a small shred of ambiguity, and suddenly every analyst, every social media account, every fan thinks they know exactly what is going on in the building. They turn speculation into certainty and certainty into drama. And a lot of what is being said right now is just noise. Some people act like the offense is crumbling. Others act like players are on the verge of pointing fingers. And a few people want to bring up comparisons that have nothing to do with this team. The truth is that when an offense with big expectations hits a rough patch, the quarterback becomes the lightning rod. It does not matter if the issues come from the line, from timing, from the play design, or from chemistry. The quarterback takes the headlines. That is the job, and Hurts knows that. Everyone in the building knows that. But the way the conversation has been twisted is what feels off. Suddenly people act like minor frustrations between competitive athletes are some kind of alarm bell. They act like every report is coming from a place of absolute truth. And half the time the stories contradict each other anyway. One voice says it is chaos. Another says it is normal. Another says nothing is happening at all. And through all that noise, the players keep preparing because that is the only part that actually matters. What gets lost in all the chatter is the fact that this offense has been evolving. It is not broken. It is adjusting. It is finding rhythm. It is working through the same bumps that every top-level offense faces during a long season. Some teams peak too early. Others take too long to find themselves. But the teams that make deep playoff runs are the ones that sharpen their identity at the right time. And when you look at this roster, especially with the defense rising, you get the sense that the offense does not need to panic. They just need to settle in and play their game. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments and let's talk birds. Whispers are echoing through the locker rooms in Philadelphia as the Eagles shook the sports world with an unexpected twist during training this week. Sources close to the team claim that new signings have walked into the facility and left both fans and players stunned. According to insiders, the arrival was kept tightly under wraps, and the mere sight of these fresh faces sent ripples of excitement and a touch of disbelief through the squad. Veteran players reportedly paused mid-drill to catch a glimpse, while whispers filled the hallways about who these reinforcements might be. The buzz is so strong that some teammates are said to have barely recognized the newcomers, describing the atmosphere as electric and a little surreal. While the Eagles front office remains silent, speculation is already spiraling. Analysts and fans alike are asking, could these additions shift the balance in the locker room? Will they redefine the team's dynamic? Or are they here to play a more subtle role behind the scenes? Sources suggest that the newcomers are not only talented, but carry reputations that precede them, players who have previously surprised crowds and shaken up locker rooms. Wherever they've gone, the intrigue deepens as the team has reportedly limited media access, feeding rumors that the Eagles are deliberately creating suspense. Inside chatter hints at a mix of experienced veterans and high-potential talents, but no official confirmation has been offered. The timing of this shockwave adds to the drama. Observers note that the Eagles have been methodical in recent seasons, making quiet moves that ultimately ripple through the league. Yet nothing seems to match the sudden buzz generated by this latest surprise. Fans have taken to social media, speculating endlessly, while sports commentators are scrambling to piece together clues from limited glimpses and insider tidbits. For now, all eyes remain on Philadelphia. Will the team fully integrate these unexpected reinforcements? Or is this just the opening act in a carefully orchestrated storyline? One thing is certain, the Eagles have managed to capture attention like never before, and the city and the league is abuzz with anticipation. That's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, Subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.